Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Right Oz podcast, where we talk about the legend of Kamala Harris. And now your host, Josh Hammerling and Max McGuire.
Welcome back. Another edition of Right Guys podcast. Still traveling, so we got my remote set up here. My name is Max McGuire here with Mr. Producer Josh Hammerling.
That was hard to say.
Yeah, the Kamala Harris honeymoon seems to be coming to an end. And there seems to be, there's a bunch of clips from CNN, MSNBC of talking heads warning that this excitement that the Democrat Party has been really highlighting, trying to focus everyone's attention on, might just be because of how many people hated Joe Biden as a candidate, which is ironic because before the switch, they were gung-ho about Biden.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're not seeing a ton of extra enthusiasm into independents and into Republicans.
Yeah.
To vote for her. So they're starting to try and temper expectations, saying, which you understand why they'd want to do that. I don't know. Did you see I didn't plan to do this, but did you see the bit from The Villages?
Villages? No.
So The Villages are like a big community in Florida. And there are like 100,000 golf carts, registered golf carts in the Villages.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And yesterday, the day before, 100 of those golf carts got together for a Kamala Harris golf cart parade. And I'll go ahead and I'll put it on screen.
Yeah, you might as well show them now.
I just don't have an extra monitor. So it's a big story. Oh wow, big golf cart rally at the Villages for Kamala Harris's campaign. They're saying 100 days, massive weekend of action in Florida. Let me see if I can actually find
just pictures of that.
Go ahead.
What they call massive turnout may not be a Trump version of massive turnout. I'm just going to temper everyone's expectations with that, because what I did see of it, I was shocked that there would be that many people that would want to turn out for Kamala, but they do. And like you just got to see this. It's 85,000 golf carts.
So there's 85,000 registered golf carts in the Villages as of 2023.
Yeah.
And they got between 100 and 200 golf carts today. Or the other day, yesterday, whatever it was. They're trying to make this out. And someone actually went through this video and counted the people that can actually be seen. I think they counted like 65 people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they're trying to make this out to be, oh, wow, such a big turnout.
It wasn't turnout. It wasn't a huge turnout. It's borderline pathetic. But they played this up as being a huge turnout for Kamala. And like Max was saying, when you start to look at it, there's a reason they're not panning further left and panning further right. There's a reason they're not walking through the crowd, because it's an anemic turnout. If this is the most excitement they can get for Kamala in Florida, they're not like pull the money out of Florida,
And just so you know, when there are Trump events at the Villages, you get thousands of golf carts all there.
Yeah.
So the fact that you found between 100 and 200 households in an area of Florida that I think it's like over 150,000 retirees.
Yeah.
It's all just astroturfed. All of this coverage of Kamala Harris is all really astroturfed. It's fake. Yeah. It's fake. And this latest narrative that we've seen from the Kamala Harris camp is apparently they're running on this claim that J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are weird, that they think that's going to have some play. And lots of people are trying to figure out, where is that coming from? Why would that be what they're leading with, right?
Tagline, yeah.
And it stems from an NRSC memo that came out a few days ago, in which National Republican Senatorial Committee. They released this memo talking about all of Kamala Harris's bad things about her. And at the end, so they went through most liberal center, immigration, energy, crime, healthcare, foreign policy, Second Amendment, and then they had a category for weird.
Weird.
And the left freaked out. The left started mocking them. Democrats started mocking Republicans and saying, "Oh, you think you need to call her weird? That's all you got?"
Yeah.
Well, I bet you they did a quick snap internal poll to see if the weirdness of Kamala Harris resonates with voters. And I bet you it does, because 1 or 2 days later, after they mocked the idea of even circulating a memo with the word weird on it, they're now trying to brand J.D. Vance and Donald Trump as weird before this can all reach voters.
Dude, the Democratic Party has weird psychological issues, because Kamala Harris is weird, and they project on J.D. Vance that it's weird. So it's like whatever attack or potential line of attack they think someone's going to have on them, you know, they label the other side as being it, right? I mean, the true threat to democracy is the people who are trying to get Kamala Harris elected without a single vote in a primary, right?
And like, here's the deal, though. Like, if you're going to come out and say my opponent's weird and I'm not weird, which is what Kamala Harris is trying to do, you can't have pictures like this floating around. This is objectively weird. Her hanging next to a cross-dresser.
Yeah.
He has a full mustache.
I have the video in front of me. Is when they were in I think it was the White House, where they were sitting there talking. Oh, you got it. Like, I've watched this video, I don't know how many times.
You know it. Indeed, I do. Stomp it out.
That's weird. That's objectively weird.
I didn't know she was that short. I thought Kamala was like a 6 foot tall person. Like, all the stuff I had seen, like, I'm being serious here. I thought she was like 6 feet tall. And then suddenly I realized she's short, dude. She's short. Like, have they been using a whole bunch of camera angles and stuff to like project her being so tall, right? To make her larger than life. But that's weird, because she obviously feels that her, like, the height is a problem, so it's weird. And then she's hanging out with Padam. What does Padam mean?
I'm looking it up. It's
Padam?
It's a song. It's a song.
Padam. You know it.
It's just stupid.
It's weird.
Like, very obviously. I mean, she's so fake, and that's like a huge part of this. She's so fake. She's incredibly fake, and I don't even know if I want to. I mean, we can play. I have a lot of clips. Let me see what else I can grab here. Because we had clips from the last time we were going to talk about, and we ran out of time.
Well, you're looking for that, though. They constantly project their worst things on their enemies, man. We see it constantly, and this is just the latest version of it. At what point?
Good afternoon. I want to welcome these leaders for coming in to have this very important discussion about some of the most pressing issues of our time. I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit. And
so she's doing this because this was an event with, I think it was disabled people, hard of hearing, visually disabled people.
Right.
But it comes off as weird. Like, oh, my programs are she, hers. It's almost like she's saying this because someone told her to say it.
Yeah, it sounds like programming almost. And there was no excitement. Did you feel that way? She just sitting there going through the motions on, hi, I'm Kamala Harris, and blah, 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 blah. She's reading like that one kid at school that didn't want to be there. She's turning to read anyway, and they're just kind of going through it. Like I said, she's going through the motion. Oh, I don't want to be here. But she's fake, dude. Like, that's the first thing that hits you from this, right? I mean, there's no genuineness.
She's completely fake. She's completely fake. And this is something that that Laura Loomer has been kind of calling attention to today. Let me see if I can find, where's my screen? Here's my screen. So Kamala Harris her campaign is actively soliciting influencers on TikTok and Instagram, offering to pay them money to promote her campaign. which in an official capacity is legal to do, but you gotta have a paper trail. You gotta have real documentation. These people need to be forthcoming with the fact that they are essentially surrogates of the campaign. But the way that Kamala Harris is doing it is she's just giving them cash transfers, which is generally not legal. To just say, here's some cash. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of campaign finance violations starting to float from that, right? Like people with lawyers are looking at that going, wait a minute. Wow.
Yes, I'm gonna see if I can find the rest of it.
But imagine how desperate you have to be. You have to ask for viral people. He wants you to launch something that's viral. Like things are viral because people want to see it.
Yeah, but it makes you understand. It makes you understand why all this suddenly this narrative of how excited everyone is. It makes you understand how it's happening. This isn't organic. This didn't just happen overnight. That someone who, by all polling, was polling at 38, sub 40% approval rating, now all of a sudden is Queen Kamala.
Right.
They are probably spending all of that money that they just raised just to try and convince the American people that she's not weird, that she's not cringe AF, as the kids would say.
Right.
And listen, we have to be combating this because we can't allow this to work. It's this election is too important to allow this woman to be the non-weird one, right? But we're seeing a scrubbing. We're seeing a scrubbing around the internet. It is well known, documented that Kamala Harris got her start by sleeping with Willie Brown in California.
Yeah.
And he then, having that relationship with him, he then introduced her to the power brokers. And she got her start in politics through that. That is non-controversial. That is very
hold on, Max. Are you sure? Because I went to Snopes and it's considered mixed because they're saying now, and I was just there a little while ago, that they never had a adulterous relationship when they were dating.
This is their fact check.
It's wild. So they're still going back to the Snopes.
The claim: Harris got her start by having an affair with a married man, California politician Willie Brown. The facts. This is missing important context. Brown was separated from his wife, and the relationship wasn't a secret. That's still an affair. If you're married to someone and you're having an intimate relationship with them while they're still married, that still meets the definition of an affair, of homewrecker behavior.
Right.
So their idea of saying it's missing context is to confirm the base set of facts. The base set of facts. We also saw this. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, as though them being separated was reason enough that it didn't exist. Well, they're not denying it, but they're trying to justify it, which is what's crazy from the libs on it, right? They just justified it. It makes it okay. Keep going. I'm sorry. I just think it's crazy.
I just lost it. Here we go. They also tried to do this. We've seen this happen over the last day, that to say she was never really the border czar.
Oh my God.
That she was never really the border czar, and that's just a made up thing. This was from Axios. The headline was, Harris border confusion haunts her new campaign. The Trump campaign Republicans have tagged Harris repeatedly as the border czar title, which she never actually had. But as you can see from that community notes, Axios itself called her the border czar in this article, which ironically was written by the same author, the same journalist, who's now claiming that the border czar title never actually existed. So let's just be very clear. Let's just be very clear with this. Very seldom will the White House actually formally declare that someone is a czar, because that is a takeaway language from pre-Soviet Russia, right? Pre-Soviet Russian monarchy. Like, you just don't do it. Now, sometimes the White House will lean into the very obviousness of it and say, yeah, this is my transportation czar, this is my green energy czar, whatever. But more often than not, it's a term that's used by the media to describe someone in the executive branch who has been tasked with solving, fixing, or handling a certain issue. There is no dispute that Kamala Harris was tasked with solving the border crisis. There is no dispute. We have the video of Joe Biden wearing his little mask saying, I'm tasking her with trying to address this issue. Here it is.
Yeah.
The VP today, because she's the most qualified person to do it, to lead our efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle and the countries that help. We're going to need help in stemming the movement of so many folks, stemming the migration to our southern border.
He tasked her with trying to solve the border crisis.
Yeah.
And we have this little clip. I forget which word. It'll come up on the screen. Organization put this out showing a before and after. After Biden dropped out, these news channels saying she's not the border czar. But before he dropped out, even years ago, very comfortable with calling her the border czar.
Border czar. Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by President Biden.
People are going to have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
President Biden tapped Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, to be the border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar. That's what Republicans labeled her.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Now what she's up against is folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
The Biden team didn't declare her the border czar. They wanted her to work on kind of the root causes of immigration.
There has been so much criticism against Kamala Harris. You know, she was the border czar.
Calling her sort of the border czar, which wasn't necessarily the case.
So the border, if they weren't planning to address it in a major way, do not make her your border czar. She met with some of the Northern Triangle countries, but nothing has effectively changed.
It's MSNBC. It's all the super libs.
It just keeps going. It just keeps going. To the point
Max,
that
we talked about it back in the day.
Yes.
Remember? We talked about it, and you were like, "This is the worst pick in the history of picks."
yes,
and you kept saying, "When's she going down there?"
yes, and it wasn't just me. The media crowned her the border czar. They're absolutely right that Joe Biden didn't go out and say, I declare that she is our czar. Seldom is that phrase used because it is very anti-democratic to say this person is a czar. It doesn't happen often. Sometimes it does, but often it doesn't. The media branded her as the border czar because of the job she was given, which was to stem the flow of illegal immigrants into the United States. Now, the approach she took was to try and negotiate with those Northern Triangle countries to try and get them to stem the tide. But the media knew what her job was, which is why she got questions like this.
Have any plans to visit the border?
At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making.
You don't ask her, when are you going to the border, if you don't consider her to be the border czar.
Yeah.
The reason that question was asked to her by NBC, the reason it was asked of her was because she was tasked with fixing this crisis.
Yes, and it was, and it is. It was millions of people, Max. Remember that? Sorry, keep going.
No, go ahead.
No, it was at this time. How many people were crossing? How many of those caravans were making their way over the U.S.-Mexico border? Right. I mean, it was just flooding in, so much so that they had her on national TV asking her when she's going to visit it because it's her job to take care of it. And now, don't believe what your eyes see and don't believe what your ears hear. Believe what we're telling you.
Yeah.
How could people not be paranoid of 1984 when you get stuff like this? She was in charge of it. They labeled her as such, and they will lie their way. The lying it's just not blatant. It's to the point where it's almost neurotic at this point.
Yeah,
like it's part of the Democrat platform is to lie your way to the top.
Yeah,
and Kamala Harris has done everything she's ever done to get to the top. She slept her way to the top. She got to the vice presidency by some people calling her a DEI hire, right? I mean, doesn't matter. Get to the top. Get to the top.
Yeah.
Just wild. God, this really pisses me off. I'm like, I'm
pisses
getting
you off,
angry at this.
right?
It's really making me mad.
And it should. It should.
Because we know she was. And then they're going to sit there and just lie to our faces.
Yeah.
You know, the truth be damned at this point is all that's happening. From
100%. Truth be damned. Here's another bit, right? Let me share my screen. In Joe Biden's 2021 address to a joint session of Congress, technically not a State of the Union, but essentially the same thing. He talked about his American Jobs Plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about how he wanted his administration to create jobs connecting every American with high-speed internet, including 35% of rural America that still doesn't have it. This is going to help our kids and our businesses succeed in the 21st century economy. And I am asking the vice president to lead this effort if she would. She chimed in, of course, he says, because I know it will get done. What happened after that is Congress approved $42.5 billion to expand broadband access to rural and suburban communities that don't have access to high-speed internet. Kamala Harris was tasked in front of the entire world by Joe Biden with handling that what ended up becoming a $42.5 billion program. And Josh, not one person has been connected with high-speed internet that didn't already have that cabling run to their home. There's some money that's gone to try and give like subsidized internet in like low-income communities. That's not what he said. He didn't say, let's give it to cities so that internet's more affordable for African American or Hispanic urban users. That's not what he said. He said, we're going to connect rural Americans. 35% of rural Americans don't have access to internet. She was tasked with it. $42.5 billion was appropriated by Congress, and not a single person was connected to high-speed internet under this program.
What a record of failure to start right there. How can you not do anything and have $42.5 billion to throw at the problem? I mean, you think you might get one person.
This wasn't just me. This is she's being called out by the FCC commissioner, Brendan Carr.
Whoa.
Years later, it has not connected even one person with those funds. In fact, it now says that no construction projects will even start until 2025 at the earliest. Now, I get it. I get it. There's stuff that has to happen behind the scenes.
Sure.
But if you have $42.5 billion, you can move mountains when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah.
You can move mountains. If you buy a house where there isn't internet, and you call up Comcast or whoever your internet service provider is, and you say, hey, I want high-speed internet. They'll say, we don't have access to that in your area. You can then tell them, I don't care how much does it cost for me to get that trench dug and the line brought to the curb.
Yeah.
And they will give you a bill.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as it's not possible, right? If you have the money, they will dig the trench. They will run the fiber. They will run the DSL lines, T1s, T3s, whatever you want to call it, whatever it ends up being. That is a problem that can very much be solved with money. Cash talks. And to say that you had $42.5 billion and no construction is beginning until 2025, that is, use a political science term, horseshit.
Yeah.
Absolute horseshit.
What private cable company who manages those things wouldn't jump at the chance to get a piece of that pie? Right? Because that's easy money for them.
Yeah.
Not only do they get to put the infrastructure in, they get to collect money on the services after.
Yeah.
So all they had to do was put out a notice that says, trying to work with cable companies to dig trenches in rural areas, paying good money, and the door would have been beaten down, Max. It would have been beaten down because how many people chase those things all the time? Those companies do it. It's what they do. They want the cash. It would have been nothing but pure profit. So why were the feet drug? Because stuff could have happened overnight. with that kind of money. You could have had large cables run into areas. You could have had so much done in 6 months.
Yeah.
But the problem is you've got a lead on that. And you've got to have a leader who gets the connections done. And clearly we see that Kamala Harris didn't do a thing.
Yeah.
So by virtue of this task, she is a terrible leader. And if people can't see that, I don't know what else to tell you.
And remember, this is not just her. Remember, Pete Buttigieg was also given $7.5 billion to put towards electric vehicle charging network, to build a network.
$7 billion?
$7.5 billion.
Holy shit.
When it was given to him, the narrative he portrayed was that by 2030, 500,000 chargers will be put in. So this was what year?
Better get
this
working.
Was 3 years ago, November 2021. So he was 9 years away. Now he's 6 years away. And with that $7.5 billion, his office has managed to put in 7 or 8. Some people say 7, some people say 8. And I believe that a couple of them actually burned down. But at least they put them in. Never promised that they keep them standing, but they put them in. So $7.5 billion from back in 2021. In 3 years, they put 7 or 8 in. Again, this is not something that can't be fixed with sacks full of money.
Yeah.
Right? I get it. If you don't have a lot of money, you're at the whim of everyone else. Like, oh, where am I going to put the chargers? I guess I have to buy land. When you have $7.5 billion, you can buy or lease the land. You can get the easements. You can get connected to the grid. You can upgrade the electric lines to make sure they can handle that kind of voltage and amperage and all that. But with $7.5 billion, they put in 7 or 8, depending on who you ask.
Didn't Elon Musk throw his own money into it and set up thousands of chargers?
They're setting them up all the time.
Yeah, I mean there's one at every Walmart I seem to be going to now.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's done more than Booty Juice did in 2 years.
Yeah. So it's not just a Kamala Harris thing. This thing is, this incompetence is rampant across the Biden administration. It just so happens that on very high profile issues, Joe Biden tasked her with doing it. And I will again put this up there just because I want to hammer it home. Where is it? Here we go. The reason he told Kamala Harris to handle this, I am asking the vice president to lead this effort if she would. She says, of course, because I know it will get done.
And then applause.
Applause. I don't want to hear the excuses. I don't want to hear, oh, we needed more money. It very clearly did not get done.
Yeah.
So when you task a vice president, the only jobs the vice president really has are whatever the president gives them. Other than that, they're just hanging around as an insurance policy in case they need to step into the role. We have a next in line. There's no actual, other than casting tiebreaker votes in the Senate, there's really nothing, and presiding over the Senate, if they really want to, they could show up every day and do that. Other than that, there's nothing else that's assigned to the vice president other than do what the president asks you to do if you want to, right? I mean, it's not even a situation where the president can force the vice president to do something. She was given this task because, according to Joe Biden, he knew it would get done if she managed it. And it didn't get done.
Max,
all that money went somewhere.
All she had to do was go to the internet and start researching smallest towns with EV charging. And there's companies that specialize in doing that.
Yeah.
She could just thrown the money at those guys, even small little companies, to get those put in.
That is a private sector way of doing it. Like the private sector way of doing it would be to go to shopping centers that are popular but might be struggling, right? Maybe they have a couple of storefronts that are empty, but everything else is good. You go to that shopping center and say, hey, we want to lease from you 10 parking spots.
Yeah.
How much do you charge to lease 10 parking spots? Get that lease, make it 10, 20 or whatever. Then you call up the utility company. Hey, we need you to run high voltage to right here.
Yeah.
Here's a sack of money. We need it done in a month. Make it happen. it'll happen.
All they had to do was write a check. All she had to do was have people write checks.
And then you call up the people who actually build these electric charging stations, whether it be Tesla or others, say, hey, we want to buy some of these from you. Okay. That's all it takes. 3 years, billions of dollars. Nope, nothing. Right?
Wait. Let's try this one though. What if they were to go to a small little municipal town somewhere out in the middle of nowhere and just hand the money to like the governor or the mayor of that town and say, build these, right? They could have just written a check for that.
Yeah.
And then anybody could have said, sure. And then they would have been private. They would have, of course.
And that's kind of what they've done. They've written some of these small grants, not to the tune of tens of billions or anything like that. For the Kamala Harris broadband, there have been small, like multi-million-dollar grants that have been given to certain cities or counties to try and subsidize internet access. But that's not what this was passed for. As Joe Biden made very clear in his address to a joint session of Congress, this was to help fix the fact that 35% of rural America still doesn't have high-speed internet. And it was a failure. So everyone's talking about her as the border czar. Absolutely, she was the border czar. We didn't brand her that. The media branded her that because that was what she was.
She was.
Right? But she was also the broadband czar. And in very similar fashion, nothing got fixed. Nothing got done. Almost like that was the intent all along, to get nothing done.
Yeah, but it feels that way because she had nothing but checks to write.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know that money talks and bullshit walks. She had plenty of money to walk with and to talk with. She could have easily made this a win, Max. Like, just not a good win, like an easy win. That would look fantastic in rural America. So really, what we're seeing is that the reason Kamala Harris is going to do so poorly in this election is because she doesn't even know how to like reach out to small business to get stuff done. She doesn't even know how to reach out to small government. How can she be expected to run the country if she can't even get high-speed internet installed somewhere, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a complete joke. And somebody in the comments is going crazy. Whoever you are, share us with your friends. If you don't like this, make sure that you get that out there.
Keep commenting. Someone just asked in the comments watching on Rumble, is there a record of how often she actually did preside over the Senate? I'd have to find that, but I can tell you how many times she's cast tiebreaker votes in the Senate, and the answer to that is 33 times.
Wow.
So let's look at some of the tiebreaker votes that she cast, right? So there's lots of really controversial nominations that because remember, it's not 51 to 49, right? In order for her to have to cast a tiebreaker vote, that means the Democrats lost some of their own voters on this. The only way for her to cast a tiebreaker vote is if at least one Democrat doesn't want to vote for it. So a couple nominations, cloture on nominations, the budget reconciliation. So them spending all of this money without actually going through the process of appropriating and marking up the bills. A couple times she's had to go along with that and to cast tie-breaking votes. But the big one right here is HR 1319, which was the so-called American Rescue Plan. And this was the massive amounts of government spending. They said this is going to help save the economy. What it ended up doing was contributing to record levels of inflation.
Yeah.
So that is one of the driving forces behind inflation, spending all of this money, because it ends up devaluing your currency.
So, yeah.
Because they didn't take this from the tax coffers. They borrowed. It. This wasn't money that we already had. They just borrowed it. So they created it out of thin air. That ends up driving down the value of your currency, my currency, and it's one of the leading causes of inflation. So without her, this doesn't pass.
Wow.
One of the leading causes of the inflation that we're all suffering through only passed because she went in there and cast the tiebreaker vote.
It's supposed to be transitory. It's supposed to be a soft landing. You know, how often do we hear that there's nothing they can really do about it other than just, raise taxes, I guess, because that's the platform they're running on this, because that's their solution now for inflation is to raise taxes, which, history tells us that's a smart move to make.
Well, it's not just that. Like, this is the crazy thing. Did you see the? I'll take this comment down. I have it stuck up there. Did you see the bit? I was shocked. So JD Vance 3 years ago made the comment, like, you ever notice how like all the Democrats are like kind of like cat ladies? They don't have families. They're miserable, and they're trying to make all of us miserable too. It was a silly little quip. Obviously, not an insult against anyone who has a cat. I have a cat. I'm not a cat lady, but I have a cat.
I got a cat. Yeah.
What he was trying to point out was that if you look, many of the Democrats who are leading positions within the party, it's not that they don't have kids, because he prefaced these comments every time he talks about this, not talking about people who can't get pregnant, who are struggling with fertility, or have lost a child, or wish they could have kids, talking about people who have just adamantly decided, I don't want kids at all. And what he's trying to point out is it's interesting that in a country where we desperately need people to have kids to grow the population, that one party more than the other seems to be against the idea of growing families. And that was his main point. Well, the left kind of took that and ran with this. Oh, he's being mean to cat ladies. Jennifer Aniston came out, whatever. That led, though, to them unearthing. They always use this phrase on social media. We've unearthed. It's a leaked clip. It was a live podcast, broadcast to the entire world, where he talked about, JD Vance talked about, we should probably, instead of having a child tax credit, write it into the tax code. So we don't have to keep coming in every couple of years to say it's worth it to give families tax breaks. Write it into the tax code so you pay less taxes when you have kids. Because the alternative, if you don't make that right into the tax rate, is you have the tax credit. But at the end of the day, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Josh, did you know that he got Kamala Harris and her campaign to come out against the child tax credit?
Was she for it before she was against it? It doesn't surprise me at all, because it becomes a, whatever the line of attack from Republicans is the Democrat plan is just deny, project on it, reevaluate it, put something new out, deny, and lie.
Yeah.
And, it's worked. It's just the scary part. It's worked.
Yeah.
It's worked. And then the problem is that when there's help too, right? Because we try to find those things. We do a deep Google search and don't find anything, right? We'll do a Bing search of these things and we can't find it. So no, it doesn't surprise me. I am a little shocked by it. Actually, honestly, I am a little shocked by it, because why would you be against a child tax credit for anybody? Because Kamala doesn't have kids, or she's got a kid, but it's...
Well, no, she has adopted children. And
she has adopted, okay.
Well, I don't know if they're technically adopted because their mother's still alive. It's not like their mother's gone or anything. She married her husband when the kids were already teenagers. So she might have helped out, but she wasn't... Their mother was still in the picture. She wasn't a quote-unquote mother. I mean, she might be like a parental figure to them, but she didn't rear them, right? Yeah. I mean, there's a significant difference between marrying into a family where the husband already has kids and actually rearing children, helping them grow up, mentoring them. The reason they're against child tax credits is because they've branded it inversely. Rather than saying this helps American families subsidize the high cost of childcare, the way that she in her campaign described it is that Republicans want to raise taxes on people who don't have kids.
Like, that is some of the most beautiful politicking I've ever seen. It takes a very special mind to be able to turn something positive like that and turn it into an attack. Like, I don't have that kind of skill, man. I wish I did, because I mean, we'd be richer doing this, right? I mean, people would be hiring us at that point to run their campaigns. That blows my... But is that the world? Is that the future of politics we see now? Is that no matter what it is, deny?
Deny. And I mean, like, this is part of what happens when you see Democrats say, we want to get rid of the Trump tax cuts. We know what the Trump tax cuts did. The Trump tax cuts doubled the child tax credit and also created a new tax credit for older dependents who might not technically be children, but they're still someone you're taking care of. It's not as big. I think it's like $500. So it doubled the size of the child tax credit. So when they're like, oh, we're going to get rid of the Trump tax cuts, what I've always wondered is, oh, well, they'll probably keep the child tax credit because that actually is the most universally appreciated one.
Sure.
What she's now shown, her campaign's now shown, is that no, they would not keep it. They would get rid of it all. So you can't even assume that they would save the good parts. Can't even assume it.
Well, and by calling it the Trump tax credits, it's like they're trying to put something nasty on it. That Trump adds something gross to it, and that there's some sort of responsibility if you're a Democrat to get rid of something that Trump might have his name attached to. Maybe we should relabel it like American tax credits, right?
Yeah.
So why would she be against American tax credits? Because that's really the people that are benefiting from this, not Trump.
Yes.
I'm just saying, think about that for a minute, right? And so it's that phrasing, right? And they get away with the phrasing like that because they've got so much backup. They got plenty of their social media followers, right, to go out there and cause viral campaigns to go after that, right?
Here's $100. Spread our propaganda.
Yeah.
Well, you would think that they would appreciate the child tax credit because it really is not controversial at all.
Yeah.
The problem is that they don't see the child tax credit as a solution to a problem. Like, this country does have a very serious problem. We're going to have a reckoning eventually that our birth rate is below replacement.
Yeah.
Our birth rate is below replacement. And what that means is that more Americans are dying every year than are being born.
Mm-hmm.
Our population is shrinking. Now, for most of us, in our lifetime, we probably won't feel it all that much. But if you look at countries like Japan, they are absolutely feeling it.
You bet.
They're absolutely feeling it. And one of the reasons why they are feeling it so much worse than we're feeling it is that they do not generally allow immigrants to just come into their country and live there without having to jump through some significant hoops. So if we do not correct this course, we will be on the same pathway as Japan and other Japan's east, but Western countries.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that is that as all of these baby boomers, Gen Xers get older and leave the workforce, we will not have enough people to A, take care of them, or B, do the jobs that they left behind.
Yeah.
That is how societies collapse. Now, there's two ways to fix it. You can incentivize people to have kids, or you can bring people outside the country in to do those jobs.
Whoa.
No matter how you slice it, you have to spend money.
Yeah.
You're either going to make it very cheap and affordable for people to have kids, or you're going to subsidize foreigners coming into this country to do the jobs Americans don't want. You ever hear that before?
Mm-hmm. Sure do. Just about to say something about that. Go ahead.
There is a chart, and I put a different version of this chart in my book, which if you haven't already got it, I suggest people pick it up because there's a lot of good factoids like this. Conservatives' Guide to Winning Every Immigration Argument. When you look at this chart, let me tell you what this chart is. The blue line is American births. The orange line is gotaways, people who evaded capture from Border Patrol, plus Border Patrol encounters, minus the expulsions. So that means everyone who got into the country, either by escaping Border Patrol or by catch and release, minus deportations, removals. And that brings you the net increase in the U.S. population as a result of border crossings, right? Because you're not going to also count the people who are just removed. So what you see under this is that for the first time, we are bringing in as many or more illegal aliens than we have Americans being born. So for a few months here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months of the past 2 years, the leading cause for the U.S. population increases was not Americans having American babies. It was illegal aliens coming into the country. Now, the same people who are telling you it is unconscionable to give a family of 3 or 4 a tax break, and it's just a couple grand to give them a tax break, are more than comfortable, more than okay with putting these illegal aliens up in 5-star hotels, giving them free cell phones, giving them free lawyers, giving them food stamps, right? Helping them find jobs, all the benefits that they, whenever it comes time to helping Americans, the benefits they say we just don't have the money for it, right? These illegal aliens came to New York, and without even thinking, New York says, okay, here's the money. We'll figure it out. But when it comes to, hey, maybe we should make it a little cheaper for Americans to have kids so we can grow the American nation. Oh no, unconscionable.
Max, remember when they said that the Great Replacement theory was just a conspiracy theorist created by a bunch of white nationalists, racists, and, had been going tooth and nail against it since, almost, the early 2000s, 1990s, right? We were told that was a conspiracy theory. That is certainly not true. But the evidence you just provided says that the U.S. government is trying to bring in another group to make their lives super easy so they can have a bunch of kids. And the actual taxpayers who are running the country, they want to make it more difficult for them to reproduce, to create new Americans and new taxpayers. So I don't see how the Great Replacement theory is a conspiracy theory anymore.
Well, the conspiracy theory is the intent of it, right? I write this in my book that there is not the smoking gun of we're doing X, Y, Z because we want to carry out this Great Replacement. And with that said, if there were those meetings in the Democrat Party, and let's be completely honest, in the Republican Party as well, and they were to carry out a Great Replacement, this is what it would look like. So while you can't definitively say that these bills and these policies are passed for that specific reason, it is hard to understand why they're doing this, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of split screen is the best way to view it. The same day, almost the same day that the left is saying, how dare JD Vance want to give American families a couple grand off their taxes if they go through the process of raising the next generation of Americans. The same day you had Elizabeth Warren on TV saying we need to give all of these illegal aliens a pathway to citizenship. The reason that immigration is one of the leading issues in this election is not because the American people see these illegal aliens and say, hey, we should make them Americans. The reason that this is one of the leading issues is people look at this and they say they shouldn't have been let in to begin with. They shouldn't have been let in to begin with.
Right. And then you've got, Vance coming out saying, pack your bags. Because I think they understand what the American people want. And I think they understand what the American people need. Yeah. And just it's basic nation stuff when you have a border. And you protect it. You don't let people in who don't belong here. Not racist. Yeah. We have a lot of immigrants. We let a ton in. Actually, we're very, very gracious for letting in people. We do it all the time. And I just don't like it when people, have you ever been cut in line? Pisses me off. I would say something to that person if I see it. Dude, line starts back there, right? The Democrats have pretty much just said, you know what? The line doesn't matter anymore. Those of you who've been trying to get into the country for 20 years, and there are people that wait long times to get in. They give you the big FU middle finger to them, right?
I want to show you something. This is a video from Clinton Hill, which is a neighborhood in almost entirely Democrat Brooklyn, New York.
Wow. They
are building a migrant shelter in the middle of their neighborhood that's going to hold 4,000 illegal aliens.
4,000.
I want to show you the protests happening there, because these are not AstroTurf protests. These are locals saying enough is enough.
Here are frightened now just to go outside.
Now it feels like that whole section
we're doing that, and that's what
is just not available to the community
asking our local elected
anymore.
So
our parks are not available to
can't go there
anymore.
Search out and give us a list of all of the empty lots that there are.
Migrants from a 4,000 bed shelter nearby fill the sidewalks. They sit on park benches, on stoops and curbs, under the BQE overpass. So many people crowded in here, residents feared what was coming.
We have been witnessing the escalation in violence on the street and in the community for months now.
We've been pleading with the mayor, as we've seen increased violence, that this was going to be inevitable.
And on Sunday night, it came. 2 people were murdered here, a third critically injured just outside one of the 2 adjacent shelters in Clinton Hill. It is a neighborhood now pleading for help. Residents came together tonight to demand the city provide more protection for them now. And
you don't want to say you get what you vote for, but these people voted for this.
Sure.
These people voted to make New York a sanctuary city. They voted for this. They voted for the politicians who took one look at the first couple sets of buses into the city and decided we're going to spend whatever it takes to let these people live here. I know a lot of people who chased their dream of being on Broadway or making it big in New York, who weren't able to survive, weren't able to pay for their rent, and had to go back home. They failed. For every success story in New York, there's multiple failures, right? And it's a revolving door. The idea that people show up to New York with no skills, no education, nothing to add to the economy or the community whatsoever, but because they're diverse, the city's actually going to subsidize their existence. Josh, that murder was committed by a Venezuelan street gang. What Donald Trump has said is that they're bringing criminals in was absolutely true. These people didn't show up in America completely innocent, no evil to them whatsoever, and decide, I am going to go join a gang on the other side of the planet. They brought their gang affiliations here
with them, which means that they showed up in groups together, because you just don't recruit overnight to get into a gang. You generally show up with your friends.
Yeah.
So not only did they let the gangs in, they let in a lot of people who affiliate with these gangs. So where was the Biden administration at the border trying to vet all these dangerous people coming in? Because how many times we were told that the people coming in aren't dangerous. They're just migrants trying to fill the jobs that Americans don't want. I'm still trying to find the jobs Americans don't want right now.
We just watched it. They're not doing jobs. They're sitting on the sidewalk. They're sitting on the sidewalk all day waiting for the next free meal.
Yeah. And the problem is that these people don't realize that when you vote for Democrats, this is what you get. This is part and parcel. When you buy, when this is what you buy when you vote for Democrats. This is what comes to your home. And this is coming to a neighborhood near you.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of these people haven't been settled yet. So if they don't have anywhere to go, they're going to say they're set up their own places to live, or they're going to be given something to live. I worry that in Colorado, all those homes that they're going to build for the homeless, they're just going to turn into these little communities that are probably going to be filled with crime and drugs, because we're subsidizing their livelihood. Why do they even have to go to work? They can get a bed at any time, get up, still get food, go and rob someplace, come back. Not even have to worry about it, right? May not even have to go through the court system.
Have you seen what's going on in Venezuela?
It's beautiful at this point. There's no crime. There's
that, but they also just had a complete stolen election where
Maduro wins again.
Yeah,
and he was,
The exit polls said that he was going to lose, and then they said, "Oh no, actually he won." There are over 8 million Venezuelan refugees and migrants around the globe, right? So while it reeks of funny business for sure, you also have to think that if those migrants didn't leave Venezuela and stayed there, which again, that's easier said than done. There's no food. They're eating their dogs, eating their cats, eating rats. It's not a life, right? But the only reason they can even pretend that Maduro won is because hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans have fled in recent years, coming to the United States. There was a story in Chicago that the Venezuelan migrants hate the winter so much, they were planning on going back to Venezuela if Maduro lost. That doesn't sound like an asylum. That's conditional. How does that work? How does that work?
Hey, there was a
go back and fight for it
that did the same thing. They were asking for extra coats and stuff during the winter, and they started interviewing people, and they said, "We just don't like it here because it's cold."
Yeah.
I thought you were running from something.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I thought you were running from Maduro, right? And like, on that Maduro election, like yesterday, he was worried about there might be blood on the streets or something like that if it doesn't go his way, like some veiled threats. But if you live in Venezuela now, crime's at an all-time low. Maybe you do vote for Maduro because suddenly he got rid of a lot of the problems. Send them all to the U.S.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's funny business. I think it's funny business because of the way.
Oh, for sure is. For sure is. But it highlights. Listen, I understand that there are refugees, bona fide refugees around the world who need somewhere to go.
Yeah.
But the minute that, like, there was a mad rush. I don't know if you saw it. There was a mad rush of people trying to get back into Venezuela to vote yesterday. Because they realized, hey, we should probably cast those ballots, to the point where the Maduro regime actually blocked the land border into Venezuela, wouldn't let their citizens back in because they knew you're just coming to vote against me. So they actually had a flotilla going in by boat, sneaking back into their country to cast a ballot. If you're able to do that, the conditions to justify asylum do not exist.
No.
Right?
No.
The idea that you'll be killed if you go home, and there were just people rushing home, people conditionally saying, hey, I might, based on how the election goes, I might want to go home. Those are not the conditions to justify asylum. And that's not to say I support the Maduro regime at all. No, absolutely not. But at some point, if you're not going to fight for your country, right? I mean, like this happens with every refugee flow anywhere on earth. They leave war, they leave violence. And yeah, I get that. But we talk about on the show all the time about the military age men, fighting age men. You're not going to defeat National Socialism, communism, if all of the military age men who would fight against it run away.
Yeah.
It won't happen.
Yeah, because I was saying, what happens if we're
Give you the
attacked,
final
right?
word.
If we're attacked, would any of those people actually fight for us? But for today's final word is, man, what you get is what you vote, right? What you pay for is what you're going to see. And when you vote Democrat, you get Americans being replaced. You get taxes. Remember, folks, they're running on a "we will tax you more" platform. I've never seen that anywhere in the history of politics. That wasn't a dictatorship. So remember, this vote coming up in November is not guaranteed. You must get your people out there. You must be on the teams that make sure that the vote is safe, secure, and fair. Get out of your board. Volunteer. Be the ones out there.
Yeah. Yeah. You cut in a little bit out there, but I'm sure it was very profound.
It's not, but it's cool.
That's it for this edition of the podcast. If you like it, subscribe, like, comment, subscribe. We're on Rumble, YouTube, Twitter, X, so you can watch us there Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's it for this edition. My name is Max McGuire.
And I am Josh Hammerling.
Remember, the fight to take back our country is not over yet, but the only way we win is if we all stand up and fight together. See you next time.
See ya.